Thank you, Cynthia. I'm going to begin with a bit of full disclosure because I don't want to be like Phil Zelikow. I don't know. Does everyone know who Phil Zelikow is by now? Okay. And I guess you know Condoleezza Rice and that they co-authored a book together. So that the man who was running the investigation and deciding what evidence was going to be seen was also a best buddies with the woman who played the star witness. Okay, so just imagine that situation in a trial. The judge and the star witness are best friends, and it's not even news. It's not covered. Tonight, I'm going to speak on behalf of 911truth.org, which is the co-sponsor of these 9/11 omissions hearings, along with 9/11 Citizens Watch. We are also the co-sponsor with Walden3.org and INN World Report of the televised National Town Hall on the events of September 11th, which we're holding this coming Saturday, September 11th, 2004, at 7 p.m. at the Manhattan Center Grand Ballroom on 34th Street. You can find out all about it from leaflets that are available here, or you can go view the program at summeroftruth.org. I hope you can all make it, and I hope you bring a lot of friends and family, because if you've been listening to the presentations so far, then you probably agree there is a need to get out some real information about September 11th. I can tell you right now that on Saturday, we will be revealing some powerful and specific new evidence that the U.S. government has been lying to us about September 11th. We've got them dead to rights on at least one point. And this is something you've never heard, and I can't reveal it today. I'm sorry about that, but I want to ask you, when you hear about this later, because all of you here are going to hear about it, you should ask yourself, why is it only coming to you through the internet? Or will it finally come to you through the mass media? In large part, that's going to be up to people here, people like you at gatherings like these. I think the time has come for the citizens to fight for the truth. I'm also a member of New York 9/11 Truth, which is the coming together of New York citizens around the insistence on disclosure and need for action. We've been at Ground Zero since the beginning of the year, holding a vigil every week on Saturdays to show all the thousands who pass by this hallowed ground that we are not giving up on the truth. And you know what we've been discovering in countless conversations in front of the PATH station? We are not alone. New York wants the truth. We all know, thank you, we all know it's a question of justice for the fallen. And I have to say, more than this, it's a question of whether democracy can prevail and whether there will be justice or war on this planet. Our feeling was all along that more and more people in this city, some of us thought most people in this city and many people in the country, are not accepting the official story of 9/11. That was always strong, and we got a big confirmation of that 2 weeks ago with the publication of the representative poll of New York State residents and city residents by Zogby. Half of the people in this poll in New York City itself believed that high officials knew the September 11th attacks were coming and consciously failed to take action. Consciously failed. 1/2 of New York City. But this was also 41% of the people upstate, which may tell us something about what people think in this country as a whole. And 66% of this city are calling for a new criminal investigation by the New York State Attorney's Office. What is making you all think that? And why haven't you heard about what you think and what apparently half of the people in this city think on the news? You're left to talk with your neighbors, aren't you? I hope you will, and I hope you will be joining this effort. New York 9/11 Truth is holding meetings every week, every Thursday, and on this next Thursday we're going to hold a roundtable on what we can do to get out the information that you've been hearing here today and to break the 9/11 cover-up. Again, you can find out the details of this at the program site, which is summeroftruth.org. That's where the New York events go, and it's still summer, folks, and I think we should just keep it summer for the rest of this year until November 2nd and beyond. I hope you excuse me for having begun with all this information about groups and coming events, because, as I said, I'm going to give you full disclosure. I am involved in this issue, and I hope you will get involved actively. 9/11 Truth is not only about 9/11. It is about truth. It is about who gets to define reality. It is about whether we will be the perpetual victims in a world governed by lies. 911truth.org, as the name says, is a website. It's just one effort among many by literally hundreds of researchers, writers, activists, and truth seekers to unite and to make a coherent and strong case for reopening a criminal investigation into the events of September 11th. This is a task that has unfortunately fallen on the citizens of this nation because our government has, not for the first time, failed us entirely. I believe in conscientious research, but I don't believe in mincing words. The 9/11 Commission was a farce. The investigation, not only, now you all know that the investigation, that the executive director was, a high official in both Bush administrations. But beyond that, I assume you all heard about Max Cleland as well, who was a commissioner until last December. Who here remembers how he resigned and what he said before he resigned? He said, "Bush is scamming America." He said, "Every day we find out this government knew more about these terrorists in advance than it has ever admitted." He said these things to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, and to Salon.com, and there they stayed. They were not picked up by the other mass media. He said all this in October and November 2003, and then he didn't show up to the next hearings. Soon after this, Bush, who is scamming America, according to Max Cleland, appointed him to head the Export-Import Bank. And he took that appointment, and since then he hasn't been talking about this anymore. So I think that is a big red flag. How is it possible that this isn't a news story? For 3 years, hundreds of researchers have been gathering evidence that contradicts the official story, and they have been networking, and they have created great resources like the complete 9/11 timeline at cooperativeresearch.org. I think Paul Thompson, who spoke here before, has done a great job in bringing that together. But he'll be the first to tell you it's thanks to volunteer energy and information sharing. And that goes for the movement. It runs on volunteer energy and information sharing. Right now, all the people around 911truth.org are in the process of sorting enormous amounts of information into a form that can serve as the basis for complaints to reopen the case of September 11th, for something that we can take to people like the state attorney's office. We're creating an online resource called the 9/11 Omission Dossier, and we want to organize the best bodies of evidence pointing to complicity in the attacks by our own government. So in the time here today, I was hardly going to even summarize this encyclopedic subject. At best, I can give you a set of starter questions, and I can encourage you to go study and judge for yourself and to get out there and speak with your neighbors about these points. Even this list might be overwhelming that I'm going to give you in the next 2 minutes. My advice is don't let that stop you. It's up to you to make it clear to the people around you what's really going on. What motive could people in a government possibly have to allow or even be involved in an attack like September 11th on their own people? If I had to summarize it in one word, that word would be trillions. Trillions of dollars have changed their course because of September 11th. Who benefited? Who had the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq both in full preparation before September 11th? Would the American people have supported either? Isn't that evidence of advanced preparation for a turnaround in the national mood that had not yet arrived? Bush had complete war plans for Afghanistan on his desk on September 9th, and the source for that is Condoleezza Rice in May 2002. Where was the casus belli? Where was the cause for war? That's just a bit of the big picture. If you start looking at the details, you see that the top 4 men in the U.S. military chain of command, Bush, Rumsfeld, General Myers, and General Winfield, all went missing during the actual period of the attacks. You all know by now about Bush staying in the Florida school for no reason. He thought it was more important to hear the story of the pet goat than to act in any way on his authority as the commander-in-chief. But what people don't realize often is that Rumsfeld had a disappearing attack until after the attacks were over, as did Myers, as did General Winfield at the National Military Command Center. If it happens with one of them, it might be a failure of nerve. When does it become a pattern? The nation's air defense system failed to follow standard operating procedure for intercepting planes. Since then, conflicting timelines and accounts have been presented by NORAD, which is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, and the FAA, and finally by the Keane Commission. The official story keeps changing, and we can document that in excruciating detail. These are points that you can take home with you and use with people around you who are doubting, because you can show them exactly the documentation of this. Isn't anyone going to be held accountable for issuing false accounts? Is it possible that the government and officials can just change this story every year and never need to worry that it will be noticed? How long are we going to take this? I think I have very little else to say at this point. I can go on with a long list of unanswered questions about September 11th, and you've heard plenty of it. I think at this point it's up to you. I'm going to keep saying this. It's up to you to go out there and learn everything you can about this issue and find ways to speak to the people around you about it, because that's the medium that we have that's in our own hands. Thank you.
Beautiful.